Hello YouTube and welcome to channel Bella, and today I'm going to be doing a book review, and as it's the Easter season I've decided that I'm going to review Carl Lafton's book Easter Uncut. He also has got Christmas Uncut and Original Jesus, and basically he summarises Easter down to two things. Either it's about eggs, note this is a chicken's period, obviously from a female chicken because roosters can't have periods because they're males. Okay, so either it's about eating eggs or chocolatey eggs, or it's about execution. It's a very, very strange time. Hence we have the cross here. Very, very nice. I believe it's got a Tudor rose in the middle of it, which is contentious within itself. Anyway, moving swiftly on from that, back to the book. So this is basically Easter Uncut. It's a very, very, very short, and it's what really happened and why it really matters. And it focuses on the main players. So it focuses on Jesus, it focuses on Peter, it focuses on Judas Iscariot, it focuses on Caiaphas and Pontius Pilate. It's told through the eyes of John, because obviously John is not an active player in this story. The only thing that he actively does or is told by Jesus is to look after his mother. It's an interesting book because it's so short. So it talks about purpose of diaries and not your average week, and eggs or execution, like I said. And why not many diaries are very interesting. Mine certainly isn't, but this one is. Not many lives matter 200 years later. Mine certainly wouldn't, but this one does. Okay, so it starts off with Saturday night and dinner with friends. So it's written in a really friendly, chatty style, and it does use words straight from the Bible or in this kind of text. So he just sort of elaborates on various things. And what is quite important is it focuses on the first person to ever be resurrected, and that's Lazarus, whose sisters are Martha and Mary. Now, in this, he claims that Mary, Lazarus' sister, was the one who poured the oil on Jesus' feet. In some versions, it's Mary Magdalene. In some versions, it's Mary, his mother. There are a lot of Marys, and we will never know. Mary was a really popular name. So there's three major women. Either it was Lazarus' sister Mary, Mary Magdalene, because unfortunately she was classed as a lady of the night, which has since been proven to be false, but we will never know the truth of the matter. And also his mother, and I don't think anybody would be claiming that the mother of Jesus was Lady of the Night, though she was a teenage mother. But that was pretty normal. Excuse my voice. Don't know where it went. So why it matters, I'm worth it, and all of this. Second best, it's very interesting. And then you've got Sunday to the city. So the travel to Jerusalem. The king you want. The king you don't want, but the king you need. Thursday night staying in. Powerful slavery. And it's quite interesting because he doesn't focus on the breaking of the bread or the water in this book at all. This is my blood, this is my body. He doesn't focus on that. He actually focuses on the washing of the disciples' feet. And it's interesting because in here we learned that Jewish slaves, if you were a Jew and a slave in Jerusalem, you wouldn't be allowed to wash other people's feet. Your own people's feet. It would actually have to be a foreign slave. The joys of the Pharisees, Jobsworths, to do it. It was that low of a job. So the fact that Jesus washed his disciples' feet is significant because it shows what kind of king he was going to be. And then you've got Friday morning, the verdict. And what people don't tend to realise is the fact that he was basically a mock trial, a show trial that freaked everybody out. Because it was a very, very shocking thing because people weren't expecting it to happen at night. They really weren't. And it did shock everyone. So, what God doesn't do, who rules, Caesar. And also Pontius Pilate, who I think had one of the worst jobs ever, but actually handled it with dignity. At midday at the execution, so what happened there. And then he actually goes off into New Testament territory and says, so you've got the clothes, because that's linked to Psalms 22, the paint, the plant, the bones, the calendar, which is linked to Exodus chapter 11 verse 1 and chapter 14 verse 31, and the piercing fountain, which is linked to Zechariah 12 and 10, chapter 12, verse 10, and chapter 13, verse 1. So, things like that, which is interesting. And then you've got Sunday, running and eating. So why it really matters that Jesus came back and ate with his friends. The biggest twist. What difference? Another scene. And then a few days later, going fishing. So how he appeared to the disciples. Whether you believe it or not, the choice is yours, really. You really got to decide. We do have records, historical records for Jesus' birth and death. Thank you, the Romans. It's just whether he was or was not the Son of God. You've got to decide for that for yourself. Can't help you there. Nobody can, only you can do it. And then, what next? It's quite good. Is it all made up? And did Jesus really rise? Some good questions here. So, there was no empty tomb. The women went to the wrong one. The tomb was empty because Jesus wasn't really dead. The tomb was empty because the body was taken by the authorities. But didn't they just roll a rock in front of it? So why would they take it? The tomb was empty because the body was taken by grave robbers. But they rolled a giant stone in front of it. The tomb was empty because the body was taken by the disciples. Well, how could they? Because the Roman guards rolled the stone in front of it. Yeah, you end up in circular arguments. The disciples really didn't see Jesus. It was hallucination. Yeah, okay. 13 people had a mass hallucination. The tomb was empty because Jesus has risen back to life. It's quite interesting. So this is a good book. There is Original Jesus by him and... Oh, come on, turn that page. And Christmas Uncut, which I actually want to get. It was a good book, short to read, and it touched on things that I haven't noticed before. Because that's the thing, everybody should know this story, and that's because that's one of the reasons why it becomes boring. Actually, biblical literacy in the Western world is actually decreasing, not increasing, which is worrying, because there are lots of things that we still use today within our culture, whether you believe in Jesus or whatever, that have references. So we live in a culture that is full of Christian and Jewish references and even Islamic references, to be fair, because they obviously have the same people in the Quran as we do in the Bible and the New Testament. Let's get real, in the Torah, to be absolutely honest. Whether you agree is your opinion. But it's interesting in itself. This is a good book. It's short. It makes you think about things in a new and funny way. It takes a familiar story and breaks it down, and it doesn't focus on the blessing of the bread and the water. It actually focuses on the washing of the feet, which I thought was an interesting thing to focus on. It doesn't actually focus on how they remember him. It focuses on what he did leading up and during the last week of his life, which is interesting because I think people forget that. So yeah, I would give this book like a 4.5 out of 5. It's good. It's nice colour, short, and it does have excellent references. So whenever they use scripture, it references where it came from. So you can go back and check if you want to be that scriptorial about things. It's good, and it even says where you can find a more detailed, like the full version of the story. Read the full story. So he kind of summarises it a bit, but he also adds extra explanation and things, which I think is quite good. So yeah, it's good. So please like, comment and subscribe, and please be aware that this video is not meant to like recruit anybody or make anybody follow a particular religion. It's just a book review, people. Chili beans. Whether you believe that Jesus is the Son of God is your own business, really. But I read this book, I enjoyed it, made me think about things. Woohoo! Yeah, so bye!